Greetings and welcome back. In this lesson we're going to cover the pentatonic scale. Pentatonic scale is 5 notes, penta meaning 5, and not the full 7 notes. Every scale has 7 notes, like C, D, E, F, G, A, B. 7 notes. There's 2 notes that are dropped out. Now the pentatonic scale is used in blues and rock and roll very heavily, and by dropping out these 2 specific notes, that scale works well with almost any chord in a song. So as the chord changes in a song, you could sort of improvise, do some solos, some fills with a pentatonic scale. So if you're in the key of C, the chords might be C and F and G, let's say C, F, G, but you could still use the pentatonic 5 notes from the C scale for the C chord, for the G chord, and the F chord. Now, it doesn't work for everything all the time, but it's a good way to start, and it is very handy. It's very popular in blues and rock and roll. Let's take a look at it. Now, we're going to start with the majors first, because everything in music comes from the major scales. The minor scales come from the major scale. The modes, which we'll talk about later on, come from the major scales. So the major scale, for the pentatonic scale, there's 5 shapes. These shapes are movable. You could use these shapes for any key. But don't let all these little dots overwhelm you. We're going to start with position 5 here in this major pentatonic scale. We're going to start with it for a couple of reasons. One of which is it's pretty symmetric. You know, also it also happens to be the position 1 for the minor scale. Now, if you notice, the only thing different are the black dots. The black dots represent the root. So what we're going to do for today's lesson, we're going to cover C major. We're going to cover this position here. You'll learn all these positions, but we're going to start with maybe 2 positions. This position here, don't worry so much about the numbering. That's position 5, position 1, position 5 of the major, position 1 of the minor. Don't worry so much about that. Suffice it to say is that this shape can be used as a C major or any major and as an A minor. Now, every major scale has a relative minor. The 6th note in the scale tells you its relative minor. So for C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, the 6th note is A, so A minor is the relative minor for C. We're going to talk about this later on with modes and how you calculate all this stuff, but the basic rule is the 6th note of the major scale is the minor. So if you have a C major, its relative minor is A minor. It's the same notes, by the way, in the C major scale and the A minor. They sound very different. We'll explain why. They're played differently. But let me demonstrate. It's easy to demonstrate. But first of all, get this pattern in your head. You know, this A major and this a C major here and A minor. Let me demonstrate on the guitar. It makes it a little bit easier too. So if we go to the 5th through 8th fret, if I start here and I'll go down the C scale, C. It'll sound like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, which you would expect that to sound, right? And I could go lower, but that's the C scale. It sounds nice with the C chord. If I start with C here on the 5th fret of the G, C. So now we're not going to play the full scale. We're going to learn the shape first, but I want to demonstrate first of all how the C major and A minor sound different. If I start that same scale, the same notes, but I start with an A, you're not going to hear do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. You're going to hear something different, the A minor scale. A minor chord. So it's the same notes. I'm just starting in a different place. And the chords also harmonize with it better. So I just want to, we're going to learn the major scales later on, but we're going to focus right now in this lesson on the 5 notes, only 5 notes of the pentatonic. But I wanted to sort of explain how it could be that you have the same notes, the same shape, and you're playing the same notes, the same spots on the guitar, but because the root is different, it's going to sound very different because of the intervals. And I'll show you a little bit more about intervals when we get past this first lesson of the pentatonic. So to play the pentatonic, if you've never played it before, it's going to be 8/5. This is for the major, C major. 8/5, 8/5, 7/5, 7/5, 7/5, 8/5. So that's the pentatonic scale. So study that pattern and realize that for an A minor chord or an A minor song, a song written in A minor, you're going to spend more time on emphasizing the A note for the A minor. If you're playing a C major chord, and you're in a key of C major, well, I almost went. I start to play the full scale. See, there's also a C chord up here on the 8th fret. It's the E shape still up to the 8th fret. That's a C chord. You can hear how it goes with it. If I play the minors, if I play a minor, so the minor chord is going to go with the minor scale. It's the same notes though. Now why? How can you have the same notes used for very different scales, sounding scales? Major's kind of happy and minor's kind of sad sounding, right? The do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do is the major scale. We don't have a song for the minor scale. I challenge someone to put that up for us, but the minor scale is not as happy sounding as A minor. Right? Same notes. It all has to do with intervals. On a major, let's look at a piano. The intervals between C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. A whole note or a whole step is two notes, a black key and a white key. A white key and a black key. So from C to D, there's a W here for whole. There's a whole step. 2 frets on the guitar, but you go from black to white, 2 half steps, it's a whole step. From D to E is also a whole step, 2 half steps, the black, sharp, and then to E. From E to F is a half step. There's no black key here. So it's a half step. F, G, and A, between them, they're whole steps. They all have to go up 2 half steps. B to C is a half step. And this gives you the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do sound. And that's because of these intervals between the notes, whether they're a whole step or a half step. This pattern, 2 holes, a half, 3 holes, and a half, gives you the sound of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Which, by the way, I put a note in here. It goes back 1,000 years to Guido Arezzo, who's an Italian music theorist and a Benedictine monk, who created this scale, this major scale. He also created the musical staff, the lines with the notes, and created this whole do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do audio way of teaching the scale for singing hymns, Gregorian chants mostly back 1,000 years ago. And in the 1600s, it was changed a little bit. It was originally, the sound comes from a Latin hymn, and it was ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, ut. And in the 1600s, another Benedictine monk named Giovanni Battista Doni changed the ut to do. Thought it was Latinized, made it more sort of Italian sounding and less Latin sounding. So that's where that comes from. We've been learning that in kindergarten since for 1,000 years, and it still works. I take those same notes, right? See these same white keys, no black keys, and I start with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, and I've got a totally different sound because the intervals are different. A to B is a whole step, B to C is half, C to D and D to E are whole steps, E to F is half, so you get that different sound. Instead of getting that C sound, you get the sadder sound. So it's because the intervals change. And I put a little piece in here, like Joy to the World is straight down the C scale. If you go down on a piano or on a guitar, you go straight down. You need to know your scales, because scales will help you. What's this coming up here for? Scales will help you you'll be able to play by ear more. And if you notice, if I go straight down the C scale, I get the Joy to the World. Right down the C scale, 7 notes. We're practicing 5 for this lesson, right? We want to get these shapes. We want to get these shapes in our head. We want to start with this shape here. It's pretty symmetric. Now, the other thing about why is this popping up here? The other thing about pentatonic is they're like Lego. I call it a Lego concept. This is the shape we want to study, we want to memorize, right? And we just did the C major and A minor scales. But if you notice, the 5th through the 7th frets here, well, regardless of where you put it on the guitar, in this case, this is this is not C, right? We're playing a different scale here. But these 2 fret positions, in this case it's 5 and 7, the same shape here in the next shape. This is shape 2. Let me go back here for a second. In a minor scale, this shape 1 has another shape called position 2. But this shape is a little harder to learn. It's not quite as symmetric as this shape, but you need to learn these 2 shapes. In the major scale, it's called position 1. Don't worry about the numbering so much. Just learn these shapes and understand that they connect like Lego. Whether you're playing a major or minor out of it, the higher end notes, the higher notes on this shape is the lower notes in this shape. So if you're playing, if I'm up 2 more frets on full, I could do okay, if I play these exact positions here, right? Because we're at fret 3 and not fret 5, we're going to be playing a G major, a G minor, or a B flat major. So don't worry about that for now. Let's not look at this fret as 3 here. Let's just move it up to where we were and keep it simpler. So I'm going to go back to my guitar for a second. All right. So down here, if we were playing like the way this picture had it, just to demonstrate these 2 positions here, this would be G minor, because this is G here, right? This is a G note. But if I play here, it's a B flat major. But regardless of where you put it, that's the beauty of all these shapes. The pentatonic and the full diatonic scales, major and minor, you move once you know that shape, you can put it anywhere and play a different key. So that's the beauty of it, right? But I want you to learn those 2 shapes. So this shape here, this what we call position 1 for the minor, or position 5 for the major, this very symmetric looking thing. Forget the numbers. We'll just call it the symmetric pattern. This pattern is very symmetric, right? I'm going to demonstrate how this connects. They're like Lego. They all connect. These 2 positions connect to these 2 positions. And similarly, these 2 fret positions connect to these 2 fret positions in the next shape. So they overlap, basically. They overlap. But just to sort of demonstrate a little bit, if I go back to where we were earlier with A minor, right, or C major, pentatonic, I could go slide up to 2 more, and I'm just taking that little piece of that next position, the next shape, the way they connect. 5, 8, 10, right? 5, 8, 10. Let's go back to the picture for a second. 5, 8, 10. I was here on fret 5, 8, 10. So this little shape here, maybe just start with that, and the way that connects to the very first symmetric position. So you have this. Just go up 2 more frets on the higher strings, and then this is sometimes called the BB King box, because BB King does lots of things in there. But we're gonna probably the next lesson we'll switch to electric guitar because you can do a lot more with electric guitar. So I want you to study these shapes, get them under your fingers, memorize them, move them around in different places, and don't worry so much about what key you're in. Just get these shapes locked into your head and get them memorized under your fingers so you know what they are. That these 3 notes here, regardless of where you are on the guitar, these 3 here are the top of this shape, right? And these 2 notes here, which are the higher notes for this shape, are the lower notes, lower sounding notes for this shape, right? So that's really all I wanted to cover today for the pentatonic. We'll switch in the next lesson to an electric guitar because we can demonstrate a lot more in terms of bends and things and the sounds you can get with blues and rock and roll that you can't really get too much with an acoustic. You need an acoustic guitar for practicing because you don't need power, you don't need electricity, you can be anywhere, you can be on your back porch in any room, you can be inside, outside, in the back seat of your car, you could be practicing quietly while you're watching TV. You don't need to plug in and have wires and stuff around. I think you can see probably some of my electronics behind me over here for my electric guitar, which we'll switch to for the next lesson. Thanks for listening. Hope this is useful for you. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments, and we'll try to accommodate that in the next lesson or in a private video, whatever. I'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.